Hi, welcome to an information webinar with Generali PanEurope. My name is Shane Martin. I'm a business development consultant with Generali PanEurope. Our guest specialist today is Nick Malhomme. Nick is a global sales and marketing director with PPC Worldwide. PPC Worldwide are the largest global provider of wellness programs. Nick has worked with PPC Worldwide for over 6 years, working on multiple global projects with companies like Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, Nestle and HSBC, to name a few, but many more global names you'd be familiar with. PPC provides services to over 3,500 organisations. They cover servicing over 6 million employees worldwide and over 140 countries. Nick is here today to share his expertise and his opinions on wellness and wellness programs, and hopefully be able to answer some of the questions that you and some of your clients may have around wellness and the implementation of a wellness program. Nick, it's very welcome to have you here today. We're really delighted to have you.
Thank you.
I suppose first we'd like to look at some of the trends that you see around general employee health and some of the trends you're noticing in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first trend, Shane, is that organisations are looking more and more at health, whereas a few years ago they weren't. It tends to be very much focused on psychological health, so stress, depression, anxiety. If you look at the World Health Organization data, by 2020, stress, depression will be the biggest cause of workplace absence. So employers are putting in place programs to help employees deal with these issues. And then what we're seeing as well are all the well-publicized health issues that you see. So overweight, obesity, exercise, smoking cessation. But what we're actually seeing now is people combining the psychological and the physical elements together. So if you need to go and do an exercise program or a weight loss program, not just focusing on going to the gym or eating better, but actually the support in the background to enable an employee to do that.
Okay. And how are some of these trends affecting some of the organizations that you're dealing with or that you actually are introduced to in terms of, I suppose, their productivity and their profitability, which is the big concern for them?
It's the big question for a lot of organisations. What motivates an awful lot of organisations to put in place a wellness programme is absenteeism, so people not being at work and either stopping them from being absent or getting them back quicker into the workplace when they are absent.
Okay.
And what the Americans call presenteeism, and that is people being in the office, being physically there, but are they being productive? If you're distracted, if you're stressed, if you're worried about your health, are you actually going to be able to be productive? Are you in the right place to be able to be productive? So we're seeing organisations are putting it in place to tackle that, and then putting in metrics correlating well-being and health with absence data, with attrition data, putting in questions into the annual employer survey as well to see what impact that has on some of those key metrics.
So generally you're noticing that companies are taking more responsibility in their employees' health. Do you have some examples where companies have implemented programs to actually help, I suppose, where they've taken a greater interest in employees' health, both in the short term but also in the longer term?
Yes, no, very, very much so. So what we're seeing is organisations are putting in two types of model, and those models are working concurrently. One is the preventative program.
Right.
So let's not wait for somebody to have type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. Let's put in a nutrition program, let's put in an exercise program. And if we can tackle those issues early, there is going to be a win for the individual and a win for the organisation further on down the line. So we're seeing more and more preventative programs, and we're also seeing the programs that tackle those people who do have a condition to manage. And that could be a psychological condition, that could be diabetes, that could be heart disease, that could be cancer. And how can they be supported in the workplace? How can they be supported in their personal life? And looking at programs really to help them manage their condition as well. So we're seeing that. Typically it was the safety sensitive organisations who started it off, so the mining companies, the petrochemical companies. But now the services businesses are realising as well that actually by putting in these programs, it is going to have an impact on the relationship with the employee and on the bottom line.
So you mentioned there about the bottom line. I suppose every organisation is conscious of a spend in terms of it must be linked into the company's corporate objectives, and ultimately I suppose needs to contribute to the bottom line and to the success of the company. So I suppose how are companies actually measuring that success, or what objectives or what steps can they take to make sure that I suppose the spend that they're actually spending is in line with their corporate objectives?
Yeah. That there isn't a one-size-fits-all return on investment model. We can't say for €1 that you put in, you're going to get €5 out.
Yeah.
Every organisation is different. A manufacturing organisation is very different to a services organisation.
Yeah.
But actually, by putting in a wellbeing program, gauging feedback as to engagement, awareness, actually looking at data such as attrition, absence data, and then correlating that back to health insurance costs, correlating that back to absence costs, means that from the studies that we've done for individual organisations, we found that the programs do work, they are profitable. There are the tangible financial benefits, but there are also the less tangible benefits that are equally as important around engagement, around focus. A healthy and a happy employee in the workplace is going to be more productive.
So one of the important factors of it is that the company actually uses the analytical and statistical information that actually is produced out of this to potentially reduce costs in terms of their insurance costs, health insurance costs, and obviously from a Generali PanEurope perspective, there may be an opportunity to reduce their group life and group disability costs. Is that something that companies are actually taking advantage of and I suppose helping their bottom line?
Absolutely. So we recently launched an employee assistance program for a large manufacturing organisation.
Okay.
And part of their rationale as well, as wanting to support employees on the psychological elements, giving them a line to help with stress, depression, anxiety, was about having a business case to take to the insurance provider to be able to say, we're putting in a preventative program, we're doing something up front, this is consequently going to have an impact on the claims further on down the line, so we would like to negotiate a discount. So,
In general, what would an overall effective wellness program look like from a company's perspective?
First, it's about understanding the corporate objectives, understanding the demographic, understanding the corporate culture. But going beyond that, it's a two-phase process. One is to have a diagnostic phase. So in any program that you do, you want to have an element that you can measure. So doing a diagnostic, that could be a health risk assessment, that could be a biometric screening program, that could be some form of questionnaire, which gives you that baseline, but it also gives you empirical data to compare on a year-on-year basis or every 6 months. So that's very important. What it also does is it allows you then to focus on the priority areas. It's not about thinking we should focus on this, or somebody's got an idea that we should focus on this. You've actually got the data to back that up, which can then be correlated with the financial data. And then once you've done that diagnostic phase, very important to build on that and to do what we term the activity phase. So if the questionnaire tells you that stress is the main cause of workplace absence, it's the main preoccupation in the organisation, putting in some form of employee assistance program, a stress program, a communications program, and then that allows an organisation to put the resources into the area that will yield the biggest impact.
And some companies that we've been introduced to through our partners, they may already have wellness programs in place. How important is it that the wellness program, I suppose, evolve over time and remain relevant and remain having an impact on the bottom line to these companies?
Absolutely, very, very important. Quite often an organisation will put in different elements of wellness, but those elements won't communicate with each other. They may have a cycle to work program, an employee assistance program. So it's important that once the individual initiatives have been put in place, as the program evolves, those dots start to be joined up and some of the linkages go into place. It's also very important to track, to have that measurement element. And if you're doing that, you can see not only if the area that you focused on last year had any impact, but then what is your number 2 priority? and focusing on that. So making sure that you're constantly evolving, that you're varying the communication, that you're varying the promotion. So it doesn't just become routine, it doesn't become boring, but you're engaging, you're stimulating the workforce and getting them to participate.
Okay. Another area, I suppose, for wellness programs, which can be seen sometimes to be a struggle for employers, is around the motivation and engagement of the employees to take part in some of the actions, and also, I suppose, to be more proactive in terms of their own health. What actions can employers take to maybe improve the motivation, improve the engagement from employees?
Vital to communicate, to promote, to get over some of the barriers. Sometimes people may be worried about confidentiality.
Yeah.
So you can have the best wellness program in the world, but if people don't know about it, if people aren't sure about the objectives, it's not going to work. So in tandem with having quality services, having a range of different services that deal with issues, vital to get that promotion engagement piece and tailored to the organisation.
Yeah.
So for example, with the large services organisations, we may send out regular e-shots that we try and vary. If you've got a manufacturing organisation, an e-shot's not going to work when you haven't got your population within the organisation who have got access to a computer.
Yeah.
So it may be more about doing presentation, cascades through management, etc.
Yeah.
But to answer your question in a nutshell, Shane, very important to get that promotion and adapt it to the demographic of the organisation as well.
Most of the primary objective, as often as you mentioned, is around cost savings and risk management for the companies, and I suppose in general to have a healthier, more informed and more motivated workforce. How can wellness programs be effective in terms of reintegration, where ultimately companies are going to have some absentees? How can it be effective in that area?
Really in two ways. So you're absolutely right, we can prevent, but there is always going to be people who are going to get ill. There are people who are going to get stressed. There are people that are going to have events in their life that are going to cause stress, illness, bereavements, etc. So it's making sure that there is a support mechanism in there that works very, very quickly. And in the case of absence that you used, actually working with people, so if they are absent, having a proactive outreach program, letting them know on what reintegration options are there. Quite often, absence may be caused by something physical, but as it gets longer, the psychological elements become the biggest barrier. You've been away from work, it's more difficult to go back, things have changed in the workplace, your manager has changed, what's going to happen? So actually working proactively to get that employee to be in the right place, to be able to come back. If they've still got a condition, how can the employer work with them to help them handle that, to make sure there is a win-win on that reintegration for the individual, but also for the corporate.
For the corporate as well. In the journey of a wellness program, a lot of our partners and their clients, they may be considering or maybe have been tinkering with the idea of a wellness program. If it's an area that they want to get serious about, what would you be advised, I suppose, is the first point of action or first call to action that they actually might, step point they might take?
Yeah, I think it's about looking at the organisation and saying, what are we looking to do? What are the motivations? And if we don't know, doing some form of diagnostic to find out. Then it's about really getting that senior level buy-in, as I said earlier, and looking at integrating wellbeing into the mainstream. So quite a lot of people think health and wellbeing sits in a box on its own, outside of the other corporate programs, outside of learning and development. It actually sits very, very neatly within all of that. So if I've decided that I'm going to do a leadership development program, and if I identified somebody to be a future leader of the organisation, I need to make sure they've got the competencies, the technical skills, the soft skills for that role. But also they need to manage their health and well-being. They may be travelling, they may be working very long hours, they may be staying in hotels, not able to eat or exercise away from their family. So actually embedding a well-being module to get people to understand what are my triggers, what are my requirements, and how can it help me become better in my role is very, very important.
And in Generali PanEurope, we have, I suppose, through our partners, we deal with companies from as little as 10 employees, in some cases up over 5,000 employees. So we're dealing with some very large global multinational companies and then some very smaller domestic companies. So we're talking about very different resources there. So some of those companies will have the funds to roll out or implement a full wellness program. Some may not have access to those kind of resources. So what are some of the maybe cost-effective measures that some of those companies could consider to implement in for their employees? Do you have any examples around that?
Absolutely. And the wonderful thing about wellness is that you can do an awful lot, or you can do tailored small interventions that will have an impact. So the size of the organisation doesn't really make a difference. So some of the big organisations you mentioned at the beginning will have clinics, will have widespread wellbeing programs, will have nutrition programs, will have challenges, who's exercising the most. We work with organisations that are very small as well. And it may just be that they want to do a health risk assessment as a way of engaging people. The results are confidential. So the individual will not have their data shared with the rest of the organisation. But the organisation will receive a general report that just highlights some of the trends amongst their workplace. So that can help them if they're looking at budget planning for next year or future years. What is the best area to put our resources into? What should we be looking at? So the wonderful thing about wellbeing is that you can roll out a huge program, or you can do a 1 hour, half an hour intervention to engage people, and that will have an impact.
And again, some of those, in terms of return on investment, some of the companies that are maybe implementing some of those smaller projects may be able to use some of that data, again, not the individual's data, but data at a corporate level, to be able to share that with their health insurer, with their group risk provider, to show that they're being proactive in the space of health, and maybe, I suppose, get a return on investment in terms of their premiums on their health insurance and their group risk.
Absolutely. And no intervention is too small, and every intervention contributes, if not to somebody actually taking action on their health. The first step is about awareness. It's about the responsibility. I need to do something about this issue. It's been highlighted to me. So that is already the first step in the process. So it will have an impact on the areas that you mentioned.